Stand up.
Hello and welcome to a special Saturday show. I've got my friend Wajahat Ali joining me today, and it's another good one. We always love when Waj joins us. My mom says Waj is one of my favorite guests, and so many of the rest of you love him too. We had a great conversation, as we always do. It's been a little while, a long time since we talked, but he's doing some great new stuff like a substack, Left Hook, as well as a new podcast with Jen Taub called A Muslim and a Jew Walk Into a Bar, and so much more. You can find him on TikTok making videos, of course, contributing to the Daily Beast and a whole bunch of other outlets. We always love when he joins us. Also, listen to his podcast, Democracy-ish, with DAnielle Moodie. He does a lot. He's putting himself out there. I love his perspective on things. He's smart. He's funny. He's Wajahat Ali. Let's do it. And we can't do it without you. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Hope you're enjoying your weekend, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Waj. And there he is, Mr. 10 Commandments himself. I was surprised to see that you supported this decision from the Louisiana legislature to put the 10 Commandments in the schools. But I guess, I was watching your TikTok, it's so that you can sneak your Sharia into our kids, our good Christian kids.
You know, some people like Trojan horses. I prefer a golden calf. And that is how I will Trojan calf my Sharia and falafels into the public school system, because these children, damn it, if you want them to grow hair on their chest, PB&J won't cut it. You need some hummus and, like you say, the orange food that I make.
Right.
I, for one, welcome the 10 Commandments. And like I said in the piece, only if Republicans follow them. And then I was so generous, Pete. I said, not just, I say there's a lot of Republicans. So how about just Donald Trump? And then I said, I don't think this guy is going to be able to follow all 10 commandments. So I said a majority. Then I said, all right, 5. Then I said 3. If Donald Trump just follows 3 of the 10 commandments, I will allow white Christian nationalists to display the 10 commandments in all public schools. And I went down the list from 10 to 1. I really tried because I didn't know. I didn't like sit there and do the research. I'm like, let me just have fun and see if he actually follows the 10 commandments. And 1 out of 10. And even that 1 has an asterisk. Do not murder. Because technically, he, I think, probably killed 400,000 Americans during coronavirus by lying to us.
Right. That's how a lot of people certainly see it, that he didn't do nearly a good enough job and has blood on his hands, like pretty much every other U.S. president, to be fair. So what do you think?
That's 0 out of 10, bro.
Yeah. These kids are going to have to see these commandments, but their parents are likely not going to, they're going to vote for someone who doesn't follow them.
The funny thing is that, who was that governor? Was it the governor Landry? Is that his name?
In Louisiana.
He says, we have to follow the original lawmaker. And, we have to, if you want to teach the kids the rule of law, you got to teach them the 10 commandments. And just the hypocrisy is on display, which I mentioned, is that the entire GOP now, the golden calf is Donald Trump, a man who batted 1,034 for 34 in a recent case, and has 3 other cases, all 3 of them which will probably be punted until after the election, which is a travesty in itself, and a man who was in vice and has 88 criminal indictments against him. So it's all a means of the right wing imposing their will upon the majority. And the thing that people need to realize is they don't give a shit. They don't care. Hypocrisy, they don't care. Rule of law, they don't care.
Right.
Precedents, they don't care. What I'll give Republicans credit for, if I may, because I'm very generous today, is they know how to flex when they get power. Like Democrats don't. Like Republicans are like, we're in power. We don't care about the polls. We don't care about the moderates. We're going to give tax cuts to the rich. F you. We're going to go after abortion rights. We don't care. Meanwhile, Democrats are like, let's win over the middle.
Yeah, I wonder if you have examples of what you think Democrats should do. Are you talking about something like Senator Durbin right now in the Senate?
Oh, yeah, Senator Durbin. Can we give him an adrenaline shot through the heart? Have you ever heard this guy? It's like he's sleepwalking. He's like, moo. Like there was a clip that was played where the substance of his clip was very good, warning about everything, but I fell asleep about 37 seconds
Yeah.
And it's like, the thing that Republicans understand, it's about the emotion. You have to rile up the base, passion, fighters. It's just human nature, Pete. So you need people in the Senate to match the intensity and the fight of people in the House, people like Jasmine Crockett, people like Jamie Raskin, people like AOC. And I think because the Senate is seen as like this august body and they don't have to fight for every 2 years, they have a 6-year term. Yeah. Like, can you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and it was Mitch McConnell? I mean, it would be scorched earth. It would be on the news every single day. They have, Pete, rallied Republican voters to the booth based on the judiciary. This alone, I tweeted this earlier today and got some likes, and I think I might even write an essay on it. I think if you're doing a single issue, right? People talk about single issue voters, abortion, climate change. The Supreme Court should be a single issue vote for Democrats who might be pissed off about Biden, his age, the country, Gaza. Just think about the next president of the United States, most likely, Pete, will get to choose at least 2 or 3 of the next Supreme Court justices. Why? Alito and Thomas are in their 70s. Sotomayor, she has health issues. So do you like birth control, abortion rights, climate protections, regulations? That's all the Supreme Court, which is the big bazooka of the right-wing movement for the past 40 years. And as we have seen, they want to roll back this country. I've said this on your show for like years. And now you have Clarence Thomas openly saying, I want to revisit Brown versus Board. So I wasn't crazy, Pete.
Yeah, a lot of good points. But you could make that same case for all Americans. That should be a one issue. The Supreme Court has taken so much power. It's so corrupt and there's nothing to hold them to account that regardless of your feelings on controversial issues, and obviously progressives, Democrats, and people I think that live on Earth One that think, black folks should have access to the ballot, and women should. No,
I don't believe that, by the way.
You don't. That's different.
I want to be clear about that.
Women. I thought you were against women voting. Suffrage.
That's some women.
Some, right. The property owners. Ones with master's degrees. The point being, they've taken rights. The Supreme Court has taken rights. So, and like you said, the next president, whoever it's going to be, is going to have potentially 3 seats. Do you think Biden, if he's elected, we're getting way too far ahead of ourselves. I was going to talk about packing the court. You've said that should happen, but there's no way for that to happen.
Well, Dahlia Litwick was a guest of mine on the Substack. We do a deep dive on one question, how to reform the court. And I recommend people listening to her because what she does is, first and foremost, she connects the dots for a lot of folks to understand how the right wing has used the judiciary for the past 40 years, their end goal. But specifically, even though it looks bleak, she was, because I didn't think she'd go there with me, right? But I said, Dahlia, expand the courts. And she goes, yep, big structural changes. Expanding the court, there's no rule that says you need 9. It started with 6, probably should be 13. Let's not forget that Donald Trump installed 3, stole a seat from Obama. I mean, just that should outrage Democrats. And the Democrats just rolled over and took it, man. I think it's worth reminding folks, President Obama had a vacancy. They didn't even give Merrick Garland a vote. Mitch McConnell created a bullshit rule. And then the audacity of Mitch McConnell, he went against his own bullshit rule he created to bum rush Amy Barrett while people had already voted, right? So expand the court, term limits. She was with me. I said term limits. She's the one who introduced it. Ethics package that I know they want to bum rush in. Jamie Raskin said the Justice Department has to do something. Just let's hope and pray. And the ethics package would force, a Justice Thomas or Justice Alito to potentially recuse themselves if there is a conflict of interest. What is the conflict of interest? They have 2 cases coming before the Supreme Court talking about presidential immunity and talking about obstruction charges for the January 6th failed insurrectionists. And the 2 spouses of Alito and Thomas seem to be on team insurrection, Pete.
It's certainly something worth considering recusing yourself for. What did you think about that whole flag situation? What does that tell you? And did you learn anything about Alito from these secret recordings or his wife's dumb grievances?
Yeah, I did. Actually, not too much about Alito because I've been following this for a while. So he clearly is telling you his allegiance is with this right-wing minority, right? His answer to these secret recordings, and I know you've talked about it with your audience and community before, was like, I'm paraphrasing, it's 2 sides, one side's going to win. Meanwhile, Roberts was at least like, oh, rule of law, blah, blah, blah. But Roberts is also not a moderate. I mean, Roberts, when the senators are like, hey, ask these two guys to recuse themselves, Roberts is like, no. So the fact that Roberts and Gorsuch are seen as your moderates, it shows you how skewed and right-wing the court is. But for me, Martha Ann Alito, I refer to her as Lady Macbeth without regret. She's more unhinged. Because, Lady Macbeth, at least, she was walking around like dreaming and like muttering to herself after like being complicit in the murder, right? Like Mary Ann, like you could tell, like she's even more unhinged than Alito. I understood why he threw her under the bus. And even in those recordings, instead of having any sort of like regret, any sort of, type of contrition, What did she say? She's going to fly more flags. And not only is she going to fly more flags, she said, I'm German. Yeah,
what was that about? How did you hear that?
So a part of me was like, are you going to create the Autobahn and install efficiency? Are you going to like be excellent when it comes to like post-industrial electronic music? Are you talking about, discipline when it comes to the soccer team? I've never heard any person sane, sober, or drunk ever say I'm German. You know what our people did. And to me, it took me back to I don't know, Hitler. I did not see that coming. So, the fact that she would say that, and then I don't know if you also heard the recording in between like this type of like vicious cruelty, which I think that's what it underscored, is that vicious cruelty, this unearned rage, this seeming like fountain of just grievance for no reason, just because she's discomforted, right? She's discomforted by seeing a pride flag. She's discomforted that people called her out for like, being the spouse of a Supreme Court justice and flying the flags of traitors, and the type of cruelty and vengeance that it gendered in her. That to me is part and parcel of white supremacy. And, oftentimes people say it's the men. So many studies have been done on this where the handmaidens of white supremacy have been white women.
How dare you come on this show and talk about white women that way?
Some white women. Some of my best friends are moderate white women.
I bet you there's more than a few white women that are in your life somehow tangentially that are not moderate, but somehow you have a decent relationship. Like I'm thinking of a school parent, friend, or something in your community. There's got to be one.
There's a pool, right?
You should do a show with her. You're doing a show with everybody. You should do a show with the right-wing lady in your town.
There's a whole bunch, man. There's a pool right across from us, and I think a lot of the people go to the pool are from like a church community, and I think a lot of them are like basically down low MAGA, and I think I'm one of like I think we're one of the darkest people there, and I think they see me on TV sometimes, and they just eyeball me, and I think they don't know what to do with me, but I'm nice to all of them. But I think, it's one of those things like, oh, he's a nice darky.
Is it weird when you go in the pool and you see them slowly kind of get out of the pool because you're filthy?
Yeah, that is true. Because, once brown and black people get into pools, what happens is our melanin seeps out. And if you're of the white persuasion, it leaches onto you. That is not a myth. That is true.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Wow, thank you.
Or when they kind of circle around me like dolphins and someone says attack. Get him. I'm like, get who? And I join in. I'm like, get him. Yes. I'm like, wait, me? Crap.
Happy summer solstice, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
We're baking here.
Muslims do celebrate the summer solstice. How are you sweating during this heat wave in the Northeast? Do you sweat profusely from your bald head or from the pits?
I don't sweat profusely. I'm not a big sweater. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, good for you, man. You got lucky.
Yeah, I did. But some people have ridiculed me for it and said that I don't work hard enough in my workouts or in general. But no, I mean, but I do sweat from the head. When I sweat from the head the most, when I eat a hot pepper of some sort, which I'm known to do. Well,
that is probably one of the whitest things you have ever said in your life. And
no, I've said much wider. Yes, yeah. Like I'm genetically gifted. I don't sweat during a record-breaking heat.
Well, but if you throw a pepper in front of me, my God,
it's white privilege for sure. Or is it? Because you can't eat peppers.
No, my wife was like you. See, I think you should lean all the way in. When people say you don't work hard enough, he goes, no, God just loves me more, and then just walk away.
Yeah, he took my hair and he gave me sweat glands that are moderating at best. So I got to ask you, what are you doing this podcast with Jen Taub? You know her. You're friendly with her. She's Jewish. You're Muslim. It's very relevant. It's a great idea. I want to interview you both at the same time and preview it and talk about it. But I got to confess, I haven't heard it yet. What's the idea? How's it going? Did you already solve the Middle East? Or did you break up and call each other?
It's called A Muslim and a Jew Walk Into a Podcast. It's an idea that I had for a couple of years. And I approached a friend of mine, a Jewish friend of mine, and it was during the pandemic. And then, Mary Trump has started something called Mary Trump Media. And she's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you just throw it up there? So I did with Jen Taub, a good soul. And we've done 5 episodes. And they're good. They're good episodes. I think people, for the most part, they appreciate the fact that we have respect for each other. They appreciate the fact that, she comes from her perspective as a practicing Jewish woman who's liberal, considers herself Zionist, but is horrified by this current administration war. They know my perspective. And the guests that have come on have been really informative and passionate. And so it's a space for a lot of folks who are seeing what's happening in the past 8 months, and they might not know everything, Pete. And, I thought whenever you touch this topic, I always assumed, Jen and I joked, that we're just going to get hate mail and the comments are going to be like just filled with white supremacists and like, hey, darky, go back to like Iraq. But like, if you look at the comments, it's like 95% positive. Like if everyone's like, I've learned so much. So that's, we've done 5 episodes. Let's see if we can keep it chugging. But so far, those 5, all relevant, all topical, from different perspectives. And the people who have come are people who are like, I didn't know enough and I've learned a lot more. And I just like the vibe. And then we have something fun where we, I called it the Fatwa of the Week. My non-binding religious declaration. And basically all our fatwas have been on food. And so you get to see Jen Taub, the Jew, eat for the first time a blueberry bagel. I had no idea that Jews consider sugary sweet bagels, dessert bagels, to be a shame, a shanda. So I had no idea.
I didn't know that either. I'm learning.
Yeah, so they think like blueberry bagels a sin, snickerdoodle bagels a sin, chocolate hummus is universal sin. And so a Rabbi Jill Jacobs said that there are only like 6-7 kosher bagels, and any bagel that has a fruit in it is not a bagel but a muffin. Even I learned that. I had no idea.
I was thinking about talking to you today and thinking about what we would talk about. And I was like, well, we're definitely going to talk about the Middle East. We always talk about foreign policy. And I was thinking, a few years back, you went to the West Bank for the Atlantic, and you've been covering the Middle East and Israel, Palestine for most of your life, your career, and you have obviously a lot of thoughts about it. Have you learned anything about the conflict, about the history, or about how it's unfolding? I mean, have you learned anything through this horrible, horrible time since October 7th?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something that it's been throughout our lifetimes. It's something that was one of the first things, my foray into activism. 28, 21 years old at UC Berkeley. I remember we marched. That was during the time of both the War on Terror and the Second Intifada. Like you said, about 6 years ago, I went for the Atlantic and talked to the settlers, a controversial piece, which actually has gotten more views now in the past 8 months than when it did 6 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, because I think people are just so curious, and they went and saw that documentary, like 1.5 million more people saw in the past 8 months. And that also got me boycotted from some Muslims and pro-Palestinian communities. And as a result of the past 8 months, as you know, I've been boycotted and lost many opportunities simply for being critical of the Israeli government. It's entrenches what I have seen, because I've gone there 3 times in the past 10 years, that a military solution will not work. It has always failed. And that the future of Israel, and specifically Israeli Jews, is intertwined with the future of Palestinians. And the only way, I think, forward for Israel, if it truly wants to be a democracy, if it truly wants to not be a pariah, is to take its boot off the necks of Palestinians. At the end of the day, I don't care if it's 2-state solution. I don't care if it's 1-state solution. People want to be free. Throughout time, occupied people, Pete, have resisted their occupation. I don't care if it's the Irish, my people, South Asians, now it's the Palestinians. People always just want to be free. And I think what we're witnessing now in the past 8 months, and something which has been shocking to me that I've shared with other people, I never thought in my life, maybe it was me being cynical, there would be such a massive groundswell change of opinion towards Israel. And I think the reason for it is the sheer scale of this war, the brutality of it, the fact that we've seen it with our eyes, the fact that it's gone over for 8 months, the fact that people can see it on TikTok and Instagram and bypass, corporate media. You see young people, Pete, it's like 70-30 in favor of Palestine. It's like wild. In Europe, Latin America, and also with Biden voters, a majority of Biden voters use the G word, genocide. And then you see Netanyahu, I've been saying this for a couple of months. You just saw it, I think, yesterday? He comes up with a video, just literally mocking and ridiculing the United States and complaining about the United States not helping him. And they're like, what the hell? We just sent you billions of dollars of weapons and aid. And he wants Donald Trump to win. And Ben-Gvir wants Donald Trump to win. And I've never seen such an extreme Israeli government. I've been seeing the right-wing shift and been warning about it. And I have seen the polarization that this right-wing government and Israel's actions has caused within Jewish communities. And what I've been trying to warn Jewish communities is you have to create a space where the rest of us are allowed to criticize Israel and its policies without canceling us all as anti-Semites. Because you will lose a lot of allies, not to mention it's unfair. And I think you will lose a lot of Jews. And now we're witnessing Jews, young Jews, part and parcel of this multiracial community saying not in our name. And you're seeing some Jewish organizations and leaders say, oh, those are self-hating Jews. And what I told on the deal, right? Because we speak on the deal, it's all about tribalism and politics. I told these Jewish leaders, I'm like, listen, there's 1.7 billion Muslims. We've engaged in this type of excommunication. Hasn't worked out well, but we've got the numbers. There's 17 million Jews. Just I'm an ally here. You don't want to call Jews critical of Israel, un-Jews, and Hamas. That won't work out well for you. So we're seeing basically all those predictions that I've been saying on your show come to fruition. And the last thing I'll say is, and I always want to repeat this because people are missing it. White nationalists and white supremacists who do not care about democracy, who do not care about Jews and Muslims and immigrants, have used and abused this moment for a divide and conquer and have pushed their own agenda. And you're seeing some folks align. You saw Israel recently say, oh, the far right winning in Europe, that's good for Israel. And you're just sitting there shaking your head like, oh, my God. You're just not seeing down the pipeline.
GPS signal lost.
There you go.
Yeah, no, well said. They are absolutely using it to divide the progressive Democratic Party, progressive movement. And it is. It's with great effect, and it's terrible. What do you think about the media and their role in all of this when it comes to balance, when it comes to, you can pick whoever you want. I hate the phrase the media, but you've got corporate television networks like CNN and MSNBC, as I'm not even talking about Fox. You can if you want, the print media outlets like the Washington Post and New York Times, and different websites. And obviously you've got very popular YouTubers and podcasters and others. So take your pick. What is a narrative that you don't like or that you want to call out, or anything about the media coverage?
Enough data has revealed that the disparity, right? The double standards. Even in the war, it's unfair and unbalanced. The collective punishment, right? 1,200 Israelis are killed, 36,000 Palestinians are killed, and still Palestinians don't have space, sympathetic language in the headlines, in coverage, right? So I think corporate media, as we know, as we have seen, has failed. You saw Moodie. Essentially, Moodie can't talk about it, but that's why he got sacked, right? And you saw people
Hassan, who had his own show on MSNBC, who you're friends with, who now has launched his own thing. Yeah,
Zateo. And you saw people say, look, MSNBC, it's Hamas propaganda. It's simply because they had Ayman, Ali, and Moodie. The smearing of college protesters as Hamas and Hezbollah, the canceling of talent, Melissa Barrera of Scream, because she posted an article by a genocide scholar. She lost Scream. Susan Sarandon said some dumb things, but then said it was taken out of context. She apologized for it. She lost her CA, her UTA, I think, deal. You saw Asnat Tabassum, a valedictorian Muslim hijabi. They didn't even know what she was going to say, but she knew she was a Palestinian activist. Canceled the entire commencement, Pete. I have lost so many speaking gigs because 3 or 4 people have complained or people are afraid. So there's a chilling effect. And I can tell you, and I'll say this openly, right? Within media, so many folks, you think it's just Arabs and Muslims. It's not. So many of our friends are like, shit, man, if I touch this, there'll be retaliation. You see what's happening with Jamal Bowman. I mean, unprecedented money being poured into Latimer by AIPAC, right?
Jamal Bowman is a black Democrat in Westchester County running for re-election, and he's in a tough primary race against a white guy, Latimer, who Hillary Clinton has thrown her support to, and apparently he's getting money from AIPAC, you're saying?
Yeah, millions of dollars, like the most amount of money AIPAC has ever spent. And he's also very racist towards Arabs and Muslims, and the fact that Hillary Clinton said that. So it is a landscape that I think has failed. Corporate, quote unquote, media, let's call it corporate media, establishment media has failed, which is why you're seeing a space develop on, say, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, where some other people have taken advantage of it, probably not for the best means. Piers Morgan, it's been a boon for Piers Morgan. And people say, what's Piers Morgan's angle? And I think I always tell people, I've been on his show like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, I think Piers Morgan's angle is Piers Morgan. And because he does bring in quote unquote both sides. And you're seeing young people, and this is the shift, right, of corporate media, because you saw this article, I'm sure that came out today, that huge quarterly losses when it comes to cable TV, like it took a nosedive. So young people in a global audience, Pete, is going towards YouTube, Substack, TikTok, Instagram. They're leaving behind the, CNN, MSNBCs. And this is why I think people are freaking out. And I think a reason why, Mitt Romney openly told Antony Blinken why they have to go after TikTok, because these kids are getting a narrative on the TikTok. And dude, if you look at kids on TikTok, I'm talking about like white kids. They sound like us from 20 years ago. But I'm brown skinned, Pete.
I don't know. I don't know what you mean specifically by that, actually. But I feel like
what I mean by is like pro quote unquote pro Palestinian activists, meaning pro justice, pro peace.
Yeah.
The talking points that we said. They're saying
I will say I feel like young people especially have no idea what they're talking about vis-a-vis the Middle East and don't get a nuanced look at things. And sometimes I wish they would shut up because they're hurting themselves sometimes. But I also was them. So I would take all that criticism back and encourage them all to fight the apathy and be a part of it. But I just feel like everybody gets their narrative, included on TikTok, in their siloed narratives, and it all just gets fed to them whatever they want to hear. And outside the Middle East issue, I mean, you end up having young men believing all kinds of stuff and going down incel rabbit holes and other things. So I worry about the new media and how consolidated it makes your brain.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. I still want these establishment media to do better. I think it's in democracy's benefit for them to do better. And I hope the push that they're seeing, even though it is messy, it's completely messy, can force them, right? Because now you see a little bit more coverage than we never used to see, because I believe they're responding to the moment and realizing, a majority is here. We have to shift. The problem that I have with quote unquote new media, and I think that we haven't talked about this recently. I was thinking about this, is new media was supposed to connect us, was supposed to globalize. What I see for the next 5 to 10 years is silos. Yeah. I see cocoons. I see fracturing. I see silos. I see, for better and for worse, people will feel their own facts. People will go to the information hubs that make them feel better. And we will be more disconnected. And we're going to have like these small little like sections, right? It's not going to be, there's no such thing as a water cooler conversation anymore. And I was thinking about this. What's the only thing that is a water cooler conversation? And to me, it's sports. It's live. It's happening at the same time. We could all comment on it. But other than that, I mean, just look at crime. Crime has gone down. A large part of America thinks crime has gone up.
Really good point. Yeah. I'll let you go.
And the reason, am I contributing to it? I probably am. But then people like you and me don't get spaces in corporate media to say what I think the majority wants to hear. So we are forced to kind of create our own lane.
Yeah. No, I have my shot. I had my run, and Yeah, there I wasn't good enough. I wasn't playing the game right. But I should say I was there for a long time. You know, I was at Sirius, I was at CNN, I was at MSNBC. I've been there. I mean, I've had my run, and I'm not sure, you know, it could be any number of things, but I certainly think that's true of a lot of people, which is why I love a lot of folks' voices on Substack, podcast, YouTube, etc., especially yours. You're on TikTok now. I'll let you go. Are you going to be doing anything this summer with your family? Will you be playing it? Are we going to water park? Do you go to water park? Are you allowed?
I hate water parks with a passion. It's the one thing that I pray that my children grow older. We've already done our
What
water
happened
park.
to you? Were you touched at a water park, or did I just feel like you?
It's so many people. It's so loud. It's so filthy. Yeah. Like if there was a water park, if the water park was completely empty, I would love water parks. So we already did the water park like a month ago. I think we might go to Florida because we have in-laws. My kids are at the pool all the time. But I will say this, just the last thing I'll say is, you know, going back, you mention a good point, kind of tying it all together. The thing about the Middle East and what's happening right now, and also this fractured communities that we have, is I want to tell people nobody's going back. You know, Jews aren't going back, Palestinians aren't going back, women aren't going back to the kitchen, gay people aren't going back to the closet, black people aren't going back to the bus. I'm not going back to Fremont, California. I can't afford the rent. So we have to find a way to live together, which is why, even though I do get the hate, I tell folks, you know, it's worth engaging with folks, because you might disagree with Jews who consider themselves Zionists. That's still a majority. They aren't going back. And I tell Jews, you can't wish away the Palestinians, or you can't wish away this multiracial coalition advocating for Palestinian rights. And the big picture threat, I keep telling folks, the big picture threat, Thanos, is white supremacy, fascism. Yeah. It's coming after all of us. So find a way. You know, if you have to punch each other for 10 minutes and then, like, you know, go eat hummus and then unite over the 7 out of 10 things you agree with, do that. But we have to find some sort of a, if you will, a progressive coalition, not perfect, to take on the big threat that's coming after all of us, which is why I invest in things like Muslim and a Jew, Walk Into a Podcast, why I still invest in some interfaith stuff, why I still, even though I fight for my beliefs, I still reach out, because I think I see the big picture and the big threat.
Yeah, certainly do. Well said. We've got to coexist. You're absolutely right. I love you, and I appreciate you joining me, as always.
Thank you, sir.
My mom says hello. She loves you.
Hello, Mama.
Please don't call her Mama.
Hello, Auntie Dominic.
All right, there you have it. I've got your back on a Saturday show, a weekend show, huh? Maybe there'll even be more. Who knows? I hope you're having a great weekend and staying cool in this heat dome or whatever the hell it's called. Thank you so much for your support, you bumblebees listening all the way to the end. Some of you every show. So grateful. How do I show my gratefulness to you? You can let me know. standupwithpete@gmail.com. Write a rating and review if you haven't on Spotify and iTunes. Maybe that's what you'll do this weekend. Maybe you'll take some time to do that. We always need more ratings. That's a big measurement for podcast popularity, and that's how we get the good guests. All right, that's it. Back to whatever you're doing, or continue whatever you're doing. I love you. I thank you. I'll talk to you later. John Carroll, take us away.
Burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all they had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. Alright, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be told to suck, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.